I am a 22-year-old woman who has never been aware of a guy having a crush on me. I have friends who get approached fairly frequently, which has made me curious. Story 1. Once I get the chance to approach and can verify enough signals that she might reciprocate interest, I will make my approach. I rarely initiate cold approaches, as the risk-to-reward ratio tends to favor the risk side. Story 2. I have always been respectful. A random family I opened the door for at a restaurant, a 23-year-old woman, said, "Come have dinner with us." I said, "Okay." I left my friends, but we all finished at the same time. We have now been married for 11 years and have been together for 14 years. Story 3. It depends on whether it's appropriate. If she has a boyfriend or girlfriend, I very rarely approach. If she is too young for me, which I consider anyone under 28, then I will not approach. If we have many mutual friends and she has shown absolutely no interest, then I won't make a move. If we are at a club, bar, or gym and I don't know her at all, and she has shown no interest, such as by looking in my direction, smiling at me, or placing herself near me, then I will not approach because she is likely not interested. It's important to understand that for men, facing frequent rejection can damage their reputation. Approaching too many women and getting rejected often affects how they are perceived. Many women are quick to announce such rejections loudly. Therefore, it's not worth the risk of humiliation unless there is a good chance of success. Some men do not realize this or do not care and will pursue anyone and everyone. Story 4. I have only ever approached a girl once. She didn't get the hint. I tried too hard to be clever and asked her out in German. She didn't understand, so I told her the translation, and she simply said, "Oh, cool." And the conversation ended. Story 5. When I was younger, I occasionally approached women at a park or social event. A few times, I struck up conversations with women at a coffee shop while waiting and took a chance. These days, however, I never approach. It has become too confusing. There are many stories of women complaining they do not want to be approached, while others are eager for men to approach them when they are out. Some women even say that a man approaching them is a form of harassment, while others film their encounters to share on social media and call out the men involved. I am sure there are decent women out there who would, at the very least, entertain a conversation or a polite rejection, but it is no longer worth the risk. I will wait for a clear signal that she is open to being approached before doing so. Story 6. Crushes only form for me after interacting with a person for some time. The quickest predictors are whether we have common views or interests, if we enjoy our time together, and if I would want to include her as part of my family. Answering all three positively is likely to lead to a crush developing. Unlike how most girls feel, looks only serve to determine whether I would like to take the chance to get to know her rather than whether I would want to pursue her romantically. Story 7. Honestly, I just don't care anymore. From a man's perspective, we are often criticized as if we are the world's problem and feel ashamed for approaching women. I'm tired of hearing this, so I no longer engage. These days, it's up to women to make the first move. A study conducted several years ago showed that 80% of women who initiated contact ended up marrying that person. There is power in that. Story 8. Depends on the context. If she works with me, it's all on her. I'm not taking that kind of risk. If it's a lower stakes environment, I might subtly feel it out. A word of advice. Men do not generally want to be friends. If he is giving you his time, attention, or personal space, he probably likes you. Story 9. Never. You would have to drag me by the scruff of my neck, kicking and screaming all the way, and then hogtie me to prevent me from trying to escape. Why? Because the only possible outcome is rejection. The only question is how savagely it will happen. Story 10. If I see an attractive woman at a bar, party, or social event, there is a 1 in 3 chance I will approach her at some point, but only if she is in my vicinity and I can start a conversation without having to physically approach her. If I see an attractive woman randomly in public, there is a 1 in 1,000 chance I will approach her at some point, again only if she is in my vicinity and I can start a conversation without having to physically approach her. I do not typically approach women outside of social settings. There are just too many ways it can go wrong and make both of us and everyone nearby feel uncomfortable. Story 11. From a guy's perspective, be clear and direct about when you are taking me out on a date if you like me. This will help make your intentions very clear. Story 12. Pretty much never if she is a complete stranger in a public place. Maybe 20% of the time if we are at the same party or social event where we have mutual friends. Story 13. Honestly, I wouldn't have even met my current partner if she hadn't approached me first and shown interest. Weighing risk versus reward, along with being told constantly by women that cold approaching is creepy, made it not worth the effort. So I made it a rule to never do it. Story 14. I can't remember the last time I had a crush. When you date for long enough, you start to see everyone, even the attractive ones, as a precarious stack of emotional baggage waiting to fall on you. Story 15. Honestly, if you want to be approached, you have to give off clear signals. We live in a time when many women complain about sexual harassment if a man looks at them for more than a second. Lock eyes for a moment or two and smile at the man if you want him to approach you. Avoid walking down the street with headphones on or being on your phone frequently, as these signals suggest you do not want to be disturbed. Additionally, try not to appear angry or annoyed. The more you smile and look happy and inviting, the more likely a man will be willing to approach you. Story 16. Before my 20s, I never thought about it. Now, at 25, I always believed that life is too short to have regrets or wonder what if. Story 17. It really depends on the individual and the situation. Some people may feel comfortable approaching someone they find attractive right away, while others may take more time to build up their courage. It is important to consider the other person's feelings and boundaries when deciding how often to approach them. Communication and respect are key in these situations. Story 18. I don't see any benefits to dating anymore. There are too many risks and not much worth the hassle. Story 19. I would be really annoyed if anyone approached me in a public setting, so I give the same courtesy to others and don't approach. Is it any surprise that I am single? Story 20. I'm not single now, but when I was 22, I used to approach girls I liked. I almost always received a negative reaction. One girl just didn't say anything and walked away. Another girl clearly felt threatened when I simply asked if she wanted to hang out sometime. We were in a hallway with many people around, so I didn't think it was that threatening. One time, I asked one of the assistants at the dental office if she would like to hang out, and the dentist himself gave me a long lecture about how that wasn't acceptable, to the point that the girl was embarrassed and told him that what he was doing was wrong and he needed to stop. I walked out in the middle of a teeth cleaning. The best experience was when I was out for a walk and a girl started talking to me. She seemed nice, so I waited until she was about 20 feet away and asked if she wanted to hang out. She started losing her mind, like she was ready to scream for help. I felt awful. I apologized profusely and explained that I wanted her to feel safe, but she wasn't satisfied until she finished yelling at me. A lot of guys have had similar experiences, and if you already have issues, it can be a traumatic experience that you never forget. So who wants to approach anyone anymore? If I were you, I would just try to seem nice and kind. If you're always in a group, that can be tough too. No guy wants to be rejected in front of a group of girls, and it's also putting someone on the spot in front of their friends, which isn't cool. Story 21. Nowadays, unless you have confidence or are under the influence, you don't approach someone. Personally, I like to flirt while making small talk, and if it leads somewhere, then it leads. Story 22. My girlfriend had to insist that I take her number the night we met because I was too shy to ask for it, even though we talked for hours. I didn't intend to approach her. I just noticed her drink was empty as I was on my way to the bar and asked if she wanted another. Story 23. When I was single, I missed many opportunities because I was worried about appearing disrespectful. There was one woman on a train with whom I started talking, and we really clicked. However, it was during the work commute, and I was concerned she was just being friendly, as it felt like the workplace since we were both on our way to work and discussing work-related topics. I truly regret that. Story 24. I never got further than asking to meet for lunch without being rejected. The only thing I never did was ask a second time. I might be unattractive, but I at least try to maintain the last bit of dignity I have left. Story 25. I have an analogy for this. I throw a seed and see if it grows. If it doesn't, I leave it. If I see something sprouting, I take care of it. If it grows, then I know the soil is fertile. Story 26. When I was single, I approached every girl I found attractive. My intention was always to keep their attention and converse for a few days before initiating a date. This approach made them less defensive but also less likely to see me in a romantic light. Sometimes it worked. Story 27. I dated 20 years ago and would approach anyone if I were single. Take your chance. Now, 2024 is a different situation. Story 28. I have discussed this with my brothers, and the general consensus is that men are afraid of being publicly shamed or even jailed for false accusations or criticized for being inappropriate. It is much easier to tolerate a one-night stand and then disappear or engage in transactional relationships. Story 29. I don't approach women anymore. At 30, there is no benefit to doing so, especially when I have difficulty telling how old women generally are. I've accepted that this means I will likely be alone. I don't like that, but that's how things have turned out. Story 30. Before 2016, I respectfully approached women I was interested in and walked away just as respectfully if I was turned down. In 2024, I cross to the other side of the street if I see a woman walking toward me on my side of the street. Story 31. If I don't know her, she may see me as a creep and just assume I'm hitting on her. If I know her, she may see me as a creep and ruin any chance of being friends. If we're close, she may see me as a creep and ruin a good friendship. If she makes the first move, it must be a new trend or challenge for attention. Story 32. I made strong eye contact with a crush I had. I approached her only to be rejected right in front of me. Never again. Story 33. Adding to the pile of no, never, way too risky. If men approached women they found attractive, then 998 times out of 1,000, they would be seen as bothering the girl. One time, they might just not be the girl's type, and one time out of those 1,000, she might be interested. It's just how things are now. You don't approach girls. Men are much more aware these days that it's a red flag for a girl if a random male comes up and shows interest. It's also really difficult to do. You invest a lot of personal confidence in gathering the courage to approach, only to be shut down immediately. As a society, it doesn't make much sense. Women have the power to choose pretty much any male they like, and the risk of rejection for them is very small. Yet they don't make the first move. Men have no power to choose, and the risk of rejection is very high, yet they are expected to make that first move. With each rejection, there is a lasting effect on confidence, and I think men are just tired of the chase because it is so often unwelcome. The only safe way today is through dating apps. The girl on the app is single. She's currently looking for love and can choose from thousands of potential partners. So she should just go ahead and like the profiles she wants. For men on dating apps, it's almost pointless. There are 50 men for each woman, and signaling interest will very rarely get a response. But at least it minimizes the impact of constant rejection that most men face. And yes, I met my girlfriend of the last 5 years on an app and we matched. I would have never approached her if we had met in a store. Story 34. I had a crush on a girl once. She worked at a bar I used to visit 2 to 3 times a week. She was a bartender and server. We struck up conversations over the course of a few visits, and things got flirtatious. I asked her if she was seeing anyone, and she mentioned she had a boyfriend. Over the next few months, I would ask her something like, "So, are you single yet? Or are you still dating that guy?" Depending on how much I had to drink. She was always friendly and would stop to chat when it was slow. I would stay for 2 to 3 hours and we would chat for about 30 to 45 minutes during that time. It felt like she enjoyed my company and that I wasn't just an annoying patron hitting on the bartender. We were the same age and had a lot in common, and she seemed to make an effort to come and talk to me. One day, I heard a line from someone much smoother than I am and decided to use it. I told her I would ask anyone, but I was still interested in her. Then I used the line, "I hope he's sweeping you off your feet, because if he's not, I'd like the chance to." After that, I stopped asking her about her relationship status, but one day she approached where I was seated and said with a wry smile, "So, I'm not dating that guy anymore." I immediately asked her when I could take her out. We realized that due to our schedules, it would be the following weekend before we were both free. We agreed, and I called her a few days prior to confirm. Everything seemed to be going smoothly. However, the day before our date, she called me to say she had decided to get back together with her previous boyfriend. I was bummed, but there were no hard feelings. I never brought it up again, and I moved apartments a few months later, never returning to that bar. That was a lot longer than I planned to share, but I would advise handling a crush similarly. The few times I asked if she was single and joked about taking her out seemed well received. It wasn't every time I saw her, and after a few attempts, I just told her directly, "Listen, I like you, and we seem to get along. If your circumstances change, I'd like the chance to get to know you better." I didn't ask again or make it awkward. Eventually, she did almost let me take her out. So, I guess that approach kind of almost worked. Story 35. Just use online dating to reduce the chance of unwanted filming and inappropriate language due to accusations. Otherwise, let the girl approach you. Otherwise, you can only guess, and guessing can lead to undesirable consequences. Story 36. Only if her vibes are right, and she clearly signals to me that she has a crush on me as well. Other than that, I wouldn't approach her. Story 37. Never. I wait for them to approach me. Sometimes I went years without being approached, even more than a decade once. Somehow I did manage to get married in my 40s, and yes, she approached me first on a train. Story 38. I habitually break the ice with almost everyone and decide who I like later. It heavily depends on the setting, though. Most people are the other way around, and in most places, nobody is going to approach you unless you give obvious signals. You're often too subtle because you're scared. I advise you to start playing my game and break the ice as often as you can. A little can go a long way sometimes. Start small. Just say hi, compliment or acknowledge something random, or ask a question about where something is. If you don't want to outright approach them, that's fine, but this way you signal to them that it's okay to talk to you. If they miss the opportunity, just smile calmly and let them pass. If you don't have strong expectations and maintain an open mind, things will play themselves out. Both women and men are often too timid these days when it comes to socializing, especially with the opposite sex. Somebody has to take the initiative and break the ice, and it doesn't matter who. You both need to do your part. I'm happy to break the ice for people, but I can't be everywhere at once, and it's best if people do it themselves. When I do, sometimes it feels like a bait and switch, which can make it awkward. It doesn't really matter what you say that much. People are awkward. Just confidently speak to them and let them respond. Story 39. I used to approach, but I stopped doing it. I've had women act like they don't care and later tell me they liked me months or years afterward. I've had women smile at me multiple times, wanting me to make a move, and when I did, I faced harsh rejection. I've been treated like a creep for just looking. Women have treated me in ways that make me think I should approach and in ways that suggest I should not, yet none of them ever came up to say hi. Instead, they would do something random nearby and expect me to pick up on their signals, avoiding the possibility of rejection. Dating is exhausting. Story 40. I used to casually walk up and say, "Excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I couldn't help but notice how stunning you are. Could I get your contact information?" Sometimes I wouldn't even ask. I would just compliment their clothes or something, and if they responded with a compliment, then I would pursue further. Story 41. I feel unattractive and lack self-confidence. My days consist of just working and sleeping. I see no purpose in this situation. I don't believe anyone will choose me. My last girlfriend, who I was with for a year and a half, left over a year ago to focus on her career. I find it hard to imagine falling in love again. Her departure affected me deeply. Story 42. When I was single, if I thought someone was attractive and they seemed open to being approached, I would definitely go for it, as long as I was in an appropriate setting like a social event rather than the gym. Story 43. I believe I am the exception, but almost every time, I would prefer to be rejected and forget about her immediately rather than go home and regret not saying hello. Story 44. I never do. All my previous relationships started because it was the girl who asked me out. I just assume anyone I find attractive is already in a relationship, which is the case for the most part, so I never bother approaching anyone. Story 45. It's a cliché, but you miss all the opportunities you don't pursue. You shouldn't lead off by asking her out immediately. Start with some small talk, gauge her interest, and then make your move. Avoid being overly forward. Confidence is important. I've faced rejection multiple times, but it doesn't matter. Story 46. There were only 2 girls in my whole life that I had the guts to ask out. I asked one out and she said no. I didn't find the first one easy to have a conversation with, so I eventually asked her out. Story 47. I used to approach women when I was younger, but it almost never worked. Now that I am older, I don't approach anymore and I don't understand what kind of signals others are talking about. If she isn't interacting with you in any way or doing something common, you won't see those signals. My recommendation is to be friendlier and make more friends. Talk to the people around you and build momentum. Story 48. I usually won't ask someone out if they are at work or in a place where they can't leave. However, it's a rule I might bend or break if the situation feels natural. I won't ask someone out if they are wearing a wedding ring or if their partner is with them, unless it seems appropriate. Honestly, it depends if I'm under the influence. Sometimes when I'm in that state, I forget to ask someone out, and when I'm sober, I regret some of the things I remember. Actually, no, I don't. Does anyone want to do something fun this weekend? Maybe Las Vegas? But please, no matter how well it goes or how much you love me, we can't get married. I would, especially if it was Elvis shaking his hips and moving those lips. Only because I think I might have done that once, and I don't know how to find out. I also don't think you can be married to 2 people at the same time. My point is, most people won't go out with you if you don't ask. Be nice, be genuine. Take a chance. Anything can happen. They say, if you put 10 monkeys in a room, the chances are they'll create something related to Shakespeare. Although it's more likely that you'd find 10 monkeys in a room recreating a Jackson Pollock painting on the wall made out of mess. I mean, I'm just paraphrasing that quote. I don't really remember much. Later. Yes. Don't get married. Story 49. Almost never. But I tried it once a few weeks ago for a change. She was eating alone at the restaurant across from my friends and my table. I complimented her after she finished eating. I was very nervous, but she was kind enough to chat and gave me her contact information. I haven't asked her out yet. Story 50. Finding someone's appearance attractive does not always mean I have a crush on that person. Most of the time, when I see someone looking attractive, I give them a compliment and then move on with my life. Story 51. Wait for them to make the first move to avoid embarrassment or discomfort. If an opportunity arises where we must interact, we should seize it confidently, recognizing that sometimes the goal may exceed our current abilities to achieve and maintain. Story 52. I approached my work crush 3 times, all standard interactions, and I never told her how I feel. I haven't really approached her since, not wanting to overdo it. Story 53. I would say 1/4. If I feel there is a connection or some common interests, I would approach and talk. I would get to know her better, and if the time is right and we are compatible, I would plan everything out and then make my move. Story 54. If I am single and not busy working out or reading, I will go up and introduce myself. I will not wait for signs or play games. Either it happens or it doesn't. That's life. Story 55. There is a girl I am friends with. We are both 20 years old, and I am unsure if we will work out in the future. Therefore, I am intentionally resisting my urge to ask her on a date or to be affectionate toward her, other than as a friend. Story 56. In the past, when I was interested in someone, I took a more gradual approach. I preferred to get to know the person better before anything happened. I believe I can count on one hand the times I approached someone directly, and most of those encounters did not end well. Story 57. All the women I know feel uncomfortable or offended when approached, as they are already in a relationship. Therefore, I wouldn't randomly approach anyone. It's better to be introduced through a friend. Story 58. Having a crush? It's almost every time unless she's committed or something like that. Just finding her attractive? If I'm in the mood. Story 59. Cold approaching people, whether male or female, almost never works. The average person you see out and about is just trying to get on with their day. Your best bet is to engage in mutual events where there is shared interest. Story 60. To answer this post. Basically never. Well, here's my perspective. I can find women and girls beautiful or pretty, but that doesn't necessarily make them attractive to me. Attractive would be someone I would want to actively be around and hang out with because we would likely have similar interests, hobbies, and beliefs, not including the religious or spiritual kind, among other things. I have met many pretty girls and women, but I haven't encountered one I would consider attractive. Nor have I ever been introduced to anyone I would describe as such. Usually, you meet through a friend, a family member, or through some shared club or activity. Clubs were never really my thing. My family is quite selective about their friends and relationships, plus they tend to socialize with others their age. All of my friends that I stay in contact with have either moved away or have their own lives, so I'm less involved in their lives, which is understandable. Alternatively, you can meet in public, but I'm essentially a hermit because there are few places I want to go around the city where I live. I don't drink and have never enjoyed being at the bars I've visited. I don't like large crowds, and the few places I do go to are usually quite empty. The gym, which I haven't been to in a while, cafes in the morning before work, and more niche shops that don't seem very popular around my area, so I've mostly avoided them too. That's not to say those are my only hangouts, but they are more conducive to mingling than grocery stores, as the kind of people I might connect with might be there as well. I just don't approach individuals anymore for several reasons. I'm really shy, less so now, but still quite shy and somewhat reclusive. I have no knowledge about the person I would approach, and there's no mutual acquaintance to introduce us. The few times I've had the intent to make an introduction and ask if they're single or looking to date, I found out they either don't swing that way, already have a partner, or aren't interested in a relationship. Otherwise, I have only seen them once or infrequently, which makes it difficult to establish a connection. There are other reasons, and these are just a few of the factors behind my reluctance to approach others. Additionally, the population in my area leans toward either significantly older or younger individuals, and those around my age are often already with someone or not looking, from what I can tell. They could be misleading, but I have my doubts. Story 61. Most men will never approach a woman, and those who do are likely to fail, so I would say they are few and far between. If you like a guy, go ask him to watch a movie with you. There's nothing more attractive to men than a woman who initiates conversation about a date. Story 62. When I was single, I enjoyed meeting new people. If they were attractive and showed interest, that was a bonus. If not, it was still great to make a friend. I approached all sorts of people. Once, I ended up in a situation where a guy thought we were meeting for a romantic connection after I arranged to meet for drinks because he was reading a book I had read on the subway. I began chatting with him and was open to making a new friend. It may not have been the ideal outcome, but it was quite funny at the time. I believe that if you are genuinely interested in people and brave enough to engage with a smile and a conversation starter, you can connect with anyone. This makes approaching those you find attractive easier, so you might find yourself doing it frequently. You could even compliment them on their shoes to break the ice. Story 63. I might approach her to get to know her if we have things in common. For example, I noticed a girl in my class at university walking the same path as me during the day. One class was moved, and one morning I saw her and asked if she knew about it since she was new and not in the group chat. She didn't know, but at least we got to know each other and occasionally chatted between classes, along with other people, because I wasn't comfortable talking to her alone. But that's as far as I'm willing to go. I'm not going to put myself in a situation to confess to someone who barely knows me. Story 64. It depends on the circumstance. The girl I am currently talking to works at a sandwich shop. I walked in one day, ordered my sandwich, and went about my day. However, I kept going back just to see her and technically get lunch, which allowed us to get to know each other. Now we hang out outside of her job and go dancing every week. That being said, I am usually the type of person who prefers to leave others alone unless I know them, as I don't want to creep anyone out or annoy anyone. So, I stick to myself and feel happy that I got to see a cute girl that day. Story 65. It depends on the age difference. I do approach women, but I am 50 years old. If I see someone whom I think may be under 35, I do not approach them. I am cautious these days because approaching a woman can easily lead to being arrested or banned from a facility if she perceives you as a creep or nuisance. Story 66. I became good friends with her. We did things together like eating and going to concerts and sporting events. Finally, after 15 years of this, including flying her across the country to visit, I asked her on a date. She turned me down, and then we got married a few months later. Story 67. Considering that for the past decade, men have been told by women to leave them alone, it may be time to try approaching first. Story 68. Ew. Gross. Why would I want to date someone looking for handouts? Give me clear hints and maybe I'll approach. At the very least, look me in the eyes and smile until I smile back. Story 69. I have had a serious crush at the gym for over a year. I have never spoken to her, except for spotting her once or twice. Story 70. I always take my chance. Just say hi and see if they're interested in chatting. If they don't seem to be, just move on. If you don't try, you'll never succeed. Story 71. It depends. Do I know that person? If so, I won't approach because I get rejected too often for me to think it's worth it. If I don't know that person, I'm much more likely to at least try to approach. There's much less to lose when getting rejected by strangers. Story 72. I don't. You all fought for equality. This is what it looks like. Some people approach and then they get brutally rejected and called ugly, just to hear their ego shatter for a while. Story 73. I would also like to share my experience as a woman who used to get approached frequently, including by attractive men. However, it has been a while since that happened, even though I don't look much different than I used to. I have also approached men myself, which has sometimes been successful. The comments about men only approaching women they know or when the woman makes her interest clear have been enlightening. I often assumed that if a random man doesn't say anything to me, even when I'm looking at him, it means he isn't interested. Story 74. It is a common misconception that men make the first move. The first move is the woman making it clear that the man can take a step forward. She should open the door for him to walk through it. Going back in time, this could be as simple as saying, "Oops, I dropped my handkerchief. Thank you, handsome man, for picking it up for me." Suddenly, he has an opportunity to say hello. Story 75. If we met through a social setting, the likelihood of success is high. If I met her while she is working, the likelihood of success is low. If we are co-workers, proceed with extreme caution. Story 76. I don't approach often, but when I do, it's something simple like discussing the weather and chatting while smiling. At the end of the conversation, I tell her, "You have a great smile." Story 77. Never. It's just a crush. It will pass. I can tell you from years of experience that it comes quickly and leaves just as fast. It will continue until they bury you. But if you are single, dive right in. Approach him or her and let them know. What's the worst that can happen? Story 78. If I have a crush on a girl, I try to interact as much as possible with her. It's my only approach, although historically, it has not been effective. Story 79. I approach her only if I receive a signal, such as a smile or a wave, when we make eye contact. Nowadays, if you do not do at least that, you could face backlash as a man. Story 80. Never guess if people like you. That's how people let their self-esteem sink. If he tries to talk to him, he should just do it. Simple as that. Story 81. For me, I attended a small school and my now girlfriend and I had classes together. I just talked to her. We could carry on a conversation. I had been friends with her for a few years before I made a move. I liked this girl since I saw her on the swings and thought she was pretty in 4th grade. On December 26th of my 7th grade year, I reached out to her. Turned out she felt the same way. We have been together ever since. My biggest piece of advice would be to think about who you actually have a crush on. I started liking my girlfriend because she was pretty, and as I talked to her, I realized she is more than just pretty. Don't pursue someone solely based on looks. You need to talk to them before asking them out. Do you actually get along with her? Are you two people who could love each other unconditionally? Do you want to be with this woman for the rest of your life? I guess the last question can be debatable, but I have always wanted to date with the intention to marry, and that's my plan. Again, you have to talk to her and know who you're asking out. Hope this helps anyone who reads this. Story 82. I never cold approach women. Simply doesn't work, and it's a terrible formula. I mean, think about it. Approaching a girl randomly and asking for her number while hoping my looks will pull me through is not effective. Plus, I like to think I have good taste in women, and no girl of good character is going to go for that, as she shouldn't. So I flirt to test the waters and see how well we click. I do this pretty frequently. It goes like this. I try to flirt by chatting her up, lightly making fun of her, or cracking some jokes to get a chuckle or two. If it works, great. If it doesn't, oh well, I'll find someone else and try again. But I will never just randomly approach a girl out of the blue and ask for her number. Story 83. I don't, because it will only end badly. Women have made it clear they do not want to be approached, so I am taking their advice. Story 84. Make every effort to see her, and don't stop thinking about how much you want to talk to her. Eventually, you will encourage yourself to do it. Story 85. Definitely find out if she is cool, not involved in drugs, has similar career or future goals, and is compatible. There is more than meets the eye. Story 86. If she is not someone I should date, such as a coworker, flatmate, or someone already in a relationship, I will never approach her. Over time, the crush will fade because I have made up my mind. If that is not the case, I will ask her out once. If it's a no, then it is over. Story 87. I usually do it, but it takes some time before I feel comfortable approaching someone. This is especially true if we don't have regular interactions. If it's a random woman, I would never consider cold approaching. The concept of cold approaching is fundamentally flawed. Story 88. Just from Reddit, I would assume most men don't put any effort into approaches anymore, for both good and bad reasons. Personally, if I'm attracted to a woman and we've had a genuine interaction, conversing for more than 5 seconds or so, then I'll express my interest pretty quickly. It depends on the situation, but generally, I'll ask for a date rather than just a phone number. I prefer to suggest a specific event on a specific date. That said, I am single at the moment, but I have never had an issue meeting women, talking to them, or getting dates. Story 89. Absolutely not. I have been called enough horrible names by people I know and care about. I do not need it from a stranger in public as well. Story 90. I have improved in expressing my feelings instead of enduring constant discomfort while hoping for a positive change. I am working on it. Story 91. I experienced this today. If I sense the right vibe, I approach. Just be kind and friendly. Do not intrude, and accept no as a valid response. Story 92. I don't. I'm an introvert. In my experience, she would never like me anyway. That has been the case 100% of the time, and that is not because not approaching is already a no or whatever people like to say. Story 93. I don't. By the time I entered my 30s, I had been burned too much to approach relationships in this way. In my 20s, I more or less ended up in relationships by meeting women who were friends of friends, and we would hit it off. Social life has changed in the last decade, and that doesn't really happen anymore. After my divorce, I don't meet new people or women very often. When I do, I am more concerned about the peace I have in my life, and it rarely seems worth the risk of losing that peace to pursue an attractive woman. As much as I miss being in a relationship and want to settle down, I feel too damaged at this point. But that all really started in my early 20s. People put too much emphasis on who approaches whom. If you like someone, regardless of gender, make a move. Start a conversation. Many people are introverted and prefer to keep to themselves. Many are afraid due to what the media has portrayed following the #MeToo movement and what some have said about men. We don't want to appear as villains or make anyone uncomfortable by making an advance. Women have been sending extremely mixed signals for years, which has ruined the dating environment. That being said, I want to make it clear that there are victims and those who cause harm out there. I am not trying to diminish anyone's experience. And if someone hurt you, I am truly sorry that there was no one there to stop or prevent it. Story 94. Men need to have self-confidence to approach women. However, over the years, I have observed that men are often criticized by women, leading many to feel discouraged about approaching those they like. Men fear rejection, and for those with low self-esteem, a rejection can intensify feelings of being undesirable. As a 47-year-old man, I initially struggled with shyness and lacked the confidence I have now. It never occurred to me that I was attractive, even though the women I dated were all beautiful. It wasn't until about 4 years ago that I finally recognized my worth. Since then, I have found that being genuine is the best approach, and I have learned how to flirt in a respectful manner. But this is my personal experience. Story 95. As someone who has been approached but did not realize it until I was older, I would suggest being more outgoing. I have about a decade of experience ahead of you, and if dating remains the same, much of the guesswork based on your age will diminish in the next year or two. People will become more mature and more forward, which isn't always a good thing. However, I am not from Generation Z, so I am unsure how that generation's dating dynamics work. Story 96. I prefer to keep my thoughts to myself. I do not want to be ridiculed or face accusations of harassment. I do not want to jeopardize my well-being over my feelings, which is why I choose to remain reserved. Story 97. Every single time, if you never try, you have a 100% chance of failing. If you try, you could have a 99% chance of failing, but what if she is the one? Rejection hurts, but it is part of life. I believe many of the comments here explain why so many of us are single and lonely. It feels like our society has taught us that it is unacceptable to approach a woman, but I refuse to follow that narrative. I do my best to be tactful, kind, and honest. Story 98. Out of probably 10 crushes, I approached 2. One had been dating the same guy for almost 6 years, so I had no chance. The other dated me for 8 months and was extremely abusive, so I had to break up. She also gained 50 pounds while we were together, so her appearance was changing at 19 years old. Story 99. I am surprised by how many people mention complete strangers they randomly pass by. Do you develop crushes in a fraction of a second? Story 100. Please understand that asking a question like this on Ask Men is similar to seeking advice from a group of awkward, lonely, and bitter young adults who may be looking for validation regarding their perceived hardships. It's great that you want to learn more about this, and it reminds me of how little I understood at your age. The more comfortable you become with genuinely engaging with people as individuals rather than as mere possibilities, the better off you will be. Learn to value honesty and authentic behavior, as these are the qualities found in people you can approach directly. It takes time, and everyone has their own path to understanding such matters. Be open while maintaining healthy boundaries. You will gain a lot of insight over time. This is one of those experiences that cannot be rushed, as most people your age feel just as lost as you do, even if they appear to have everything figured out. Story 101. Never, she's got to initiate or nothing is going to happen. I'm introverted, but I have very social jobs, so it's worked out fine having more extroverted women approach me. It's much like that meme where someone has to tell the waitress I ordered the mashed potatoes, and it's not going to be me. I should note that if I hadn't spent my 20s bartending, this strategy would likely have failed me long ago. Story 102. I see attractive girls daily and have a crush on someone occasionally. I have only approached a girl twice in my life. Story 103. I am socially awkward. What would help me is if the girl were alone and not in a hurry or appearing busy, which is basically never. Story 104. I look at her and don't know what to say. I get caught up in my thoughts as she walks away. I make an excuse for not speaking up. That's the end of the story. Story 105. It was once rare for me to assume that she is interested in me from the beginning. I approach with the mindset of, will I like this girl? And I will walk away if her appearance is her only defining trait. Story 106. Never, no chance. There is absolutely no way you would know I am interested. I do not believe that I have a shot, so I do not bother trying. Story 107. Aminin nila sa akin kapag hindi na nila ako crush. Nalalaman kayo mula sa ibang tao na may nakagusto sa akin. Pero dati pa pala. Kaya never kong napapinsin kung may gusto ba sa akin ang isang tao dahil parang naman lang ang lahat. Tapos bigla na lang may magsasabi sa akin na crush daw nila ako noon. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.